All the new increases for ANSES retirees and pensioners in September, all the increases coming for the month of September, have already been announced, which will improve the income of ANSES. Retirees and pensioners in Argentina, we share with you the list that will improve your monthly income. A measure that also applies to retirees, non-contributory pensions, and the universal pension for the elderly, which would be the PUAM. Support us by liking this video. We invite you to subscribe to the channel, and we also invite you to join the largest community of retirees and pensioners in Argentina by pressing the button that says join. As you can see on the screen, the parliamentary agenda in the coming days will confirm the date on which they will reapprove the new increase, with a new extra bonus for ANSES, retirees and pensioners in Argentina. And the good news is that President Javier Milei was unable to gather the votes needed to sustain the veto, which means that he will not be able to overturn the new increase. With the new extra bonus that is going to be discussed in Congress, the deputies and senators know that the right thing to do is to vote again in favor of ANC as retirees and pensioners in Argentina. You cannot pretend to adjust to the most vulnerable sectors and think that you are going to win an election that way, something that the president and his government do not want to understand. No one can win by promising to continue with an adjustment plan that hits the most vulnerable hard and favors the wealthiest at the expense of those most in need. Pay attention, because what is coming in September is a real earthquake. In terms of ANSES, pensions and retirements and everything indicates that it will be a historic victory for retirees and pensioners against the adjustment the president, Javier Milei, is trying to impose. We are talking about a series of increases and reinforcements that, added together, represent long-awaited relief in the midst of an economic crisis that mercilessly hits those who have the least. On the one hand, there is the 1.9% increase in the CPI, which corresponds to the July infraction measured by the index. But that is just the beginning, because in parallel, Congress and the Senate are preparing to approve for the second time the extraordinary increase of 7.2%, together with the increase in the monthly bonus that will go from 70,000 to 110,000. And as if that were not enough, in the second week of September, confirmation of another additional increase is expected, which configures an escalation of improvements that could become the concrete response to years of loss of purchasing power. The political outlook is clear. Javier Milei failed in his attempt to shield his veto, and the Chamber of Deputies would already have secured the 2/3 necessary to annul it. This means that the law vetoed by the executive, which includes the additional 7.2% in the improvement in the bonus, would come into effect in September, hitting hard at the adjustment policy that the president sought to impose, if confirmed. The minimum income would go from 314,305 to 320,277 due to the CPI. But with the approved law, the floor would be set at 345,000. And when adding the 110,000 bonus, the total monthly income for those receiving the minimum would skyrocket to 455,047 gross. That is more than 65,000 above what they would receive each month. In net terms after the Alpami discounts, we are talking about approximately 445,000 in cash, a substantial difference for the daily economy of ANC as retirees. Currently, with the current scheme and without the best video, the lowest income with the frozen 70,000 bonus reaches 392,500 pesos gross and 385,69 pesos in cash, which represents a real increase of just 1.55% in September, well below inflation. And therein lies the heart of the problem. The bonus has been frozen for 18 months since March 2024, while prices have continued to rise. If the veto law were applied, not only would the bonus increase to 110,000 pesos, but it would also be adjusted for infractions, preventing it from falling behind again. And this is no minor detail, because 7 out of 10 new retirements in the first half of the year were granted through moratoriums, indicating lower incomes that depend directly on these reinforcements to reach a decent level, the universal pension for senior citizens. PUAM would also benefit, as it would go from 241 pesos plus a bonus of 70,000 pesos to more than 366,000 pesos. Under the scheme, the same would happen with non-contributory pensions, which would receive the same percentage increase. And another key detail should not be forgotten. This package of improvements would come in a context in which, from January to September, pensions accumulated a nominal increase of 23.33% compared to a breach of 17.3% up until July, but with projections indicating that in September, This favorable gap will narrow, especially for those who depend on the frozen bonus. What is at stake is not just a number on the payment receipt, but the possibility that millions of retirees will recover part of what they have lost in recent years with a vetoed law in force. Justo, hipotético en esta un bando, the impact would be immediate and direct more money every month, a higher and adjustable bonus, and a political recognition that the adjustment cannot continue to always fall on the same people. The calculation of the Congressional Budget Office itself is overwhelming. Applying these improvements would cost 0.79% of GDP, a figure that with other components would reach 1.46%, an amount that, given the magnitude of total state spending and the social drama faced by retirees, seems perfectly manageable, if the political will is, to help those who currently live with just enough, even family allowances and the universal child allowance. A will receive a boost in September with an extra 1.9%, which will bring the AW to 115,000 pesos per minor child, and 374,744 pesos per child with a disability, with 80% being collected month by month, and the remaining 20% once the requirements have been met. At the same time, the salary caps for calculating contributions are being updated, with the minimum taxable amount increasing to 129 pesos, and the maximum to 35,701 pesos, which also impacts the self-employed, and the value of the months of contributions that can be purchased to complete retirement. September is therefore shaping up to be a decisive month. If Congress manages to overturn the presidential veto, it will be a political and social victory for retirees and pensioners, opens a hole to the adjustment, and a demonstration that with pressure and consensus measures that condemn millions of Argentines to live with insufficient income can be reversed. President Javier Milei gambled on upholding his veto, but the numbers in the House of Representatives show that his signature already has an expiration date, and when that happens, every retiree and pensioner will feel in their pocket that this time, the people won and the adjustment lost. Because this is not about handouts, but about justice for those who gave their lives working and deserve a dignified old age. What is happening right now with ANSES, retirees and pensioners, is not just a question of numbers, percentages, or legislative technicalities, but a political struggle that reveals something that Javier Milei does not want to acknowledge. His brutal adjustment model does not have enough social or political support. To bypass the most vulnerable sectors of the country, the president tried, with his veto, to cut a 7.2% increase and freeze a bonus that, for a year and a half, has lost real power, month after month, as if retirees were a disposable adjustment variable. But what he did not calculate is that social reality and pressure from the street, way more than any signature on a decree. Today, Congress is about to demonstrate that power is not absolute, that democracy has checks and balances, and that, when it comes to defending the right of millions of Argentines to live with a decent income, there are still those who are willing to stand up to the executive. If the veto fails, it will be much more than a raise. It will be a direct political defeat for Milei, a sign that his idea of governing by force of cuts cannot prevail. When society organizes and